Good evening. We'll be getting started soon. We're just waiting for a few more of our board members to join. Okay, Jessica, I think we're at quorum.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm literally almost home. So I'm gonna let Carly lay the ground rules and give the opening remarks, if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Manhattan Community Board 11 committee meeting of the Environment, Open Space and Parks Committee. The meeting is now beginning. I'm Carly Wine. I'm the Assistant District Manager. I'm also the staff liaison to this committee, and Jessica Elliott is the committee chair. I'm going to lay some ground rules, as Jessica mentioned. No one may speak until granted the floor. CB11 members, if you wish to have if you have a question about a broad business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. If you click the participants icon, the participants panel should appear and you should find the raise hand function there. If you still have technical difficulty, you may click the chat icon and relay your difficulty to the staff. The chat function should not be used for CB11 business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand on Zoom. Chat should be only used to alert us to any technical difficulties you're having or to state in writing information like an email address that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. Please keep your questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. Members of the public, if you have a question or a comment about the subjects on the agenda, please raise your hand through Zoom and wait to be recognized. If you are joining us through dialing in on your phone, you can dial *6 to unmute or *9 to raise your hand. With that said, I will pass it along to Jessica to call the meeting to order, and then I will do the roll call.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Carly. We're calling the meeting to order tonight at 6:35. Please take the roll. Thank you.
No problem. Collier? Elliott?
Present.
Giordano?
Present.
Hume?
Present.
Johnston? Lee?
Present.
McCullough?
Present.
Pena? Quinones? Rodriguez?
Present.
Schuler?
Present.
Wiltshire Clement?
Present.
Right. Yep, he is excused. Okay, we have quorum.
All right, thank you. The agenda was distributed ahead of time. I'm paraphrasing here. If you have any objections to the agenda, please raise your hand. Carly, if you could let me know if there's any hands raised.
Okay, no raised hands.
Okay, seeing no objections, the agenda is adopted. The October committee meeting minutes were distributed ahead of time. Sorry, I'm running. If you have any objections to the meeting minutes from last month, please raise your hand in Zoom.
No hands raised.
Seeing no objections, the October committee minutes are adopted.
Moving on to announcements. Jessica, I'll read this aloud for you. Okay, so this Saturday, November 6th, Grow NYC is hosting a free stop and swap event in collaboration with NYCHA, Neighborhood Safety Initiatives, and Inner City Green Team. It will be happening from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. at the Green Space at Wagner Houses, and the address is 451 East 120th Street. If you are interested in learning more, let me know. I can email you the flyer. Committee members should have already received it, but if you are a meeting attendee, I will drop my email in the chat, and feel free to email me if you're interested. And Jessica, I'll pass it to you.
Okay, I'm almost there. I'm in the elevator. The last announcement I just wanted to give everyone was that we submitted a letter of intent for a Robert Wood Johnson Foundation grant for parks and open space in underserved communities. So that would be for up to $500,000 over 2 years. So hopefully we can get a little bit more money and boost our advocacy for resilience and health in our neighborhoods.
Okay. Moving on to our information updates. I'm going to call on city agencies first. I know that we have New York City Parks with us, so if you are here, feel free to unmute yourself and introduce yourself.
Hi,
Dave.
good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. This is David Williams, Manhattan Manager, District 11.
Good evening. Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, okay. Yes. So I have some updates in regards to last couple of weeks. So we had a homeless encampment removal on the Harlem Pier at Harlem River. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. Between 138th and 139th Street, we had a bunch of trash and debris removal of the homeless encampment. We had assistance from NYPD and the Parks Enforcement Police, along with our Packer crew, to remove a bunch of the debris there. So that was a big helpful hand from those other agencies. Also, we had what we call a swarm cleanup, which is a collective all of our city workers throughout the district, when we went around and basically did like a big hit of most of the parks and playgrounds in District 11 for cleanup removal. And on Monday, we started with Abe Lincoln Playground, removing a bunch of leaf removal. Tuesday, we went through the process at, where did we go to? Tuesday was at Crackers Whack Park. We removed a bunch of leaf debris and cleaning, and also weeds that was removed from the location. On Wednesday, we did the same thing at Thomas Jefferson Park. A bunch of weed removals, collected a bunch of leaves growing around the track. And we wanted to paint the benches, but of course with the rain and the cold weather, we weren't able to do that. But a lot of the benches there are in bad shape, so I'm gonna make a note of that and hopefully we get that done once the weather warms up. On Thursday, we hit Harlem Art Park. We must have collected about over 20-30 bags of leaves, debris, weeds, all kind of removal from there. And Friday, same thing at Fema Grant Park. collected over 40 bags of leaves and dirt and trash. It was so much. I mean, you literally couldn't even see the logos on the basketball court. That's how much debris we've removed from there. Also, last week we had the opening of Abe Lincoln playground, the playground area and the basketball court. So that was a great event. Several people came out and bared the cold weather. That was a nice spectacle to see. I pretty much enjoyed that myself despite the cold weather. And I also wanted to make a note that, or at least to bring everyone up to speed with also what's going on within the Parks Department agency. So this was the Abe Lincoln project was the fourth location of the community board's renovation of the community parks initiative during this administration. The other locations was Playground 103, James Weldon Johnson Playground, and White Playground. The mayor also last week announced that they have plans for a $425 million budget to include the Community Parks Initiative over the next 10 years, and other parks, which include included in East Harlem for the first phase of the renovation program, which is Detective Omar Edwards Park, formerly known as Dream Park, which is on East 124th Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenue. Hopefully we will have a community input meeting to kick off the design process for this project early next year. So thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Connie, go ahead, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I do have a question, or really maybe I'm reporting something, but the entire east side of Marcus Garvey Park is currently in the dark. There are no lights working. I don't know if the person just speaking is aware of that, but that seems to be an emergency situation.
What is the location of that again?
Marcus Garvey Park, the entire east side. I just walked home, so I walked past the park. Every single light on the east side of the park is dark. So the electricity is out on the east side of the park.
Okay, that's something we probably have to get the DOT involved with. So I'll definitely look into that as well.
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions for New York City Parks? Okay, we'll move on to, if there are any other city agencies, raise your hand, please, or forever hold your peace. Otherwise, we'll move on to Parks advocacy groups. Is Randall's Island Park Alliance here today? Oh, go ahead, Adam.
Hey, my name is Adam Bandinsky, and I am from the New York City Housing Authority. I'm just going to present to you guys later. I don't know if you, Carly, I don't know if you want me to do that now, or if there's another time on the agenda to do it. I just want to introduce myself first.
Thank you so much. There's another time. We're just going through informational updates, and then we'll move on to presentations and discussions.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Is Randall's Island here with us today?
Hi, hi Jessica. This is Dave
Hey, David.
Salerno here. How are you doing?
Good.
Good. So just real quick, kind of as Dave Williams was saying with parks, we're dealing with a lot of stuff. It's toward the end of the season, so it's a lot of leaf cleanup. Just getting kind of the park ready for the winter season. We have our one last bike tour out of the park on November 13th. So if anybody wants to come do one last one while we still have some color in the trees, it's that afternoon, meeting at the Sunken Meadow City Bike Station, Comfort Station. One couple other things, spring and summer ball field permits open on the 15th of November for applications. And special event permits just opened on the 1st. So if anyone's interested in applying for any permits out at the park, those are 2 dates to keep in mind, or one that's already passed. We also, just something, you know, in the last 2 years we've had that luminosity show. They are not returning this year. I don't know if that was made, if anyone's ever said that, but they've moved on to Long Island, so we will not be having that event in the park this year. And finally, ball fields 20 and 21, the lights that were a part of the sport time expansion are being installed this month. So we will have the 2 lit fields for the spring season when the fields open back up. So we'll have nighttime ball field play on those 2 fields. And I just saw, I believe that was Ebony, who we had a conversation with, pop into the chat. So I'll speak to, I know the issue that she's having. It's something we've been dealing with at the park, and I don't know if others are aware of it, but we have these car parties that seem to be popping up in the evenings. There was a New York Times article about the speakers that they have in the vehicles. And it's, you know, blasting through East Harlem. We've gotten some complaints. I know we were working with the 25th precinct. I had a conversation with Ebony this week. She's dealing with the issue. And it's been very frustrating for us. Our park enforcement's out there, you know, till about, right now they're till like 6:37. And they, you know, will call over the 25th precinct when they show up, but it's really been all night. We are internally looking at options. It's been at 2 locations, one by field number 1 at Bronx Shore earlier this year. And now they seem to have migrated to the big lot next to Icon Stadium, which is where Ebony has seen them. So I think it's just something to make the community board aware. I don't know. You know, like I said, we've been working with the 25th precinct, but it's, by the time they are able to respond, it's often already been disturbing for people in the community. So any recommendations, we're going to look and see what things we can do about hindering the ability to get to certain spots. But as you know, the park is open. We can't close it. There's 24-hour facilities. But you know, it's been an issue that we've been dealing with. We've had it years ago. We also had this problem, and it seems to have come back around, and this summer gotten really, really bad. So Ebony, I don't know if you have anything, or if anyone else is familiar with this, but
Hi, thanks, David.
yes.
You summarized it really well. I would just say that I came to this meeting to offer some ideas and solutions, but also was interested in finding out if the community board was aware of the issue and what type of organizing they've done in the past, or, you know, current situation. Yeah, that's my son telling you we can get music. 4-year-old advocate, but just wanting to find out sort of what type of organizing has already taken place, so that we could plug in and connect with people, so that we could help solve this problem. Like I said, I would love to hear other solutions. David, we've already talked about some things that you mentioned in terms of solutions, and then I have solutions as well. So I didn't want to come and just vent. I do that all the time when I call 311 about the noise pollution and the noise problem. And so that was my reason for coming tonight. And I would just love to hear if there's anything else from the community board or other members around our organizing. So thank you.
Thank you, Ebony. And thank you, David, for both of you for bringing this issue up. This is the first I've heard of it, although I'm more on the west side of our district. So I guess, Carly, if I'm not sure which committee this would fall under, but I would love to hear, Ebony, your suggestions, and if anyone else on the committee has any suggestions. Otherwise, I think this might be a part of public safety or another committee, and we can move that discussion to that committee. But go ahead, Michelle.
I was just going to say that it is part of public safety and transportation. However, because it is happening in the park, it should be a joint sort of discovery of what we could do together to not necessarily eliminate, but to change the course of it from increasing. I think that Ebony and the previous person that was talking was saying that it had de-escalated at one point. What occurred to make it de-escalate during that time?
I will say, this is Dave with Randall. It does seem to be a seasonal thing. So it, like, as we get into colder weather, it tends to be less, but in the summer, this summer has been especially bad. And I think Ebony would agree. You know, it seems to be worse this year. We've always had these kind of pop-up little car parties. They've had speakers. The speakers have also gotten bigger, I think, compared to
the youth.
if you've seen them
If I
out
may.
there.
Sorry, I'm gonna hop in here. Thank you, Michelle. So no, this sounds like we have received noise complaints about Randall's Island at the community board office. The community board office is normally that's normally where complaints are sent. We have a constituent services arm. While you know, you're certainly welcome to discuss these issues at committee meetings. The office is more equipped to deal, you know, take action against these issues. Namely, you know, we work with the precincts, we work with other agencies to ensure that the problem is being resolved in like a, you know, as it happens. That said, it is, like Dave said, it is an issue that is reoccurring, and it does reoccur depending on the season, and it does seem to be you know, a problem. It doesn't just happen at Randall's Island, it happens throughout the district at, you know, various sections. So there's certainly room for a conversation. But Ebony, I would encourage you to, I'm not sure if you've called the board office. We've received this complaint once or a couple times before. So I'm not sure if you're the person who submitted the complaint.
No,
but
I haven't. I have not called. This is my first time connecting to the community board around this issue.
Okay, well, great. Thank you. Thank you for coming, and thank you for airing that. I will also drop the board office number into the chat. I did send my email. I put my email into the chat earlier. I'm not sure if you were there for that, but I'll send it again.
Great. Thank you so much, Carly. And thank you, Michelle. Ebony, I would, since you're here and you took the time to be here, I'd love to hear your recommendation. Sorry about my cat in the background. But I'd love to hear your thoughts, and then we can touch base with the Public Safety and Transportation Committee and carry this through the community board. But we do have a packed agenda tonight, so I want to make sure we get to everything else on the agenda as well.
Sure. Thanks, Jessica. Yeah, very quickly, the one thing I would say, it is a noise complaint, and I can feel it from my bedroom. When I am laying in my bed, I can literally feel the bass. And so, yeah, it's that bad from across the river. In terms of the solutions, as David said, you know, this is an ongoing problem, and they have made changes in terms of adding boulders in certain areas to strategically try to block out the cars. But now that they've moved to another location, which is on the west-hand side of Icon Stadium in that parking lot, it seems like more boulders are going to be added. And to David's point about them just going around it and going onto the field, which we don't want them to ruin, there needs to be some other type of solution. The other pieces, besides sort of like physical, tangible ways to change the space so that it makes it less accessible to cars, we were just thinking about more signage that states that, you know, recreation happens from a certain time to a certain time, but, you know, after a certain time, they need to, you know, it needs to shut down. My husband just mentioned having more lights.
They just sit there in the dark. So if there's lights, it would be that.
Yeah, they sit in the dark in that lot. And so maybe if there were more lights, it wouldn't be such an appealing space to be. And then, you know, the cops come, we can see them from our terrace, and there are hundreds of cars there that flow out when the cops come. And then sometimes they come back 15 minutes later and just continue either at 8 p.m. or 11 p.m. or sometimes 4 a.m. in the morning. But we were also saying like higher summonses or higher fees. I don't know how much it costs someone, like if they get tickets, but it's not a deterrent right now. So maybe if it was higher, that might be. So those are sort of the three things that we were thinking about.
Thank you. Those are all great suggestions, and we'll be sure to connect with the leadership of the Public Safety and Transportation Committee and pass along these requests, and then we'll work together to with the board to and with Randall's Island Park Alliance to help rectify this situation. I'm so sorry that you're experiencing this problem, and like it does happen around the neighborhood, and I've definitely experienced it here where I live. So I understand your pain. So thank you so much for being here and sharing that with us today. All right, Michelle, your hand's still up. If everyone has their hand raised and no longer has any comments could lower the hands. I think this is a new thing that it used to lower automatically, or I don't know, but now it's not doing it. So just be aware of your hands if you could. Do we have, I guess, Connie Lee, do you have any reports other than the lighting for Marcus Garvey Park Alliance today?
The only other thing that I'd like to mention is about a dozen benches were removed from the park with no warning. No one was told about this happening, and these are resources that are really valuable to the community. And I, although I haven't started yelling and screaming yet, I suspect I'm going to fairly soon. Oh, and one other thing I'll mention is there are about a dozen evergreen trees. They were delivered to the park probably about 6 weeks ago. They were never planted or watered, and now they're all dead, just sitting there. So again, that's valuable resources that are, no longer available to us.
What kind of plants did you say?
Evergreen trees.
Evergreen trees, thank you.
Some as tall as 10 or 12 feet. So these are trees that I assumed were going to be planted in the park, but then they were just left sitting there, and now they're all dead.
That's really unfortunate.
Very unfortunate. Okay, I'm done complaining now.
Come on, it's Thursday evening. We can complain all we want.
Oh, good.
Thank you, Connie. Any questions for, I'm sorry, I missed any questions for Randall's Island or any questions for Marcus Garvey Park Alliance. And then we're going to go to Friends of the Art Park. Did Debbie get here? I don't see her. Okay. All right. I see no hands. I see no Debbie. Are there any other parks advocacy groups before we moved on to other community-based organizations?
Mary Nell Hawk is here from East River Crew. I'm going to give her permission to speak up, and her hand is raised.
Thank you. Welcome. Nice to see you again.
I tried unmuting her. Marinelle, you can, if you're on your phone, you can dial *6. Otherwise, I asked you to unmute, so you just have to press OK.
Thank you. Okay, can you hear me better now?
Yes,
At all?
we can hear you. Yes, we can hear
Okay.
you.
Okay. First thing I wanted to ask, I saw that EDC may be making a presentation later, and I'm wondering if they're in the room yet. And because this thing involves them as well. So I have something that I just want to read and then I'll be finished, okay? And Carly has a copy of this, I believe, also. So Tuesday morning, I and 4 others from East River Crew attended an outdoor parks groundbreaking event for the improvements planned for John Jay Park. It was a chance to meet the New York City Parks Commissioner and a bunch of other people, including Steve Simon and Commissioner Castro. We had a sign. It said, "Preserve the boat launch at East 96, eastrivercrew.org." So we did get to talk with Steve and Commissioner Bill Castro, and they confirmed that EDC is handling the improvements, but they're consulting with parks naturally. And we agreed that with the understanding that it's going to be years before things are finished. And we agreed with the fact that the sinkholes and things that are uptown on the 90th to 100th side are very, very important to get fixed. But what we would really like to do is to make sure that the small extension to the Esplanade on the water side of the fence at East 96th Street is kept at its exact present footprint as required by the Army Corps of Engineers for structures extending out onto the river. The presence of this extension, though not mandatory, makes launching and landing boats a more pleasant experience. We would hate to lose that by accident with all this other stuff that's going on. So we're in 2 out of 3 short points. We are also requesting to be notified of any efforts or plans to remove the East River Cruise davit, which is a boat hoist, from its present location. Upon notification, safely remove it and relocate it to an area where it could be used by other community rowing organizations. And then 3, I think, is what I already mentioned, which is saving the area that extends out into the river for when this work is finally finished. So I wanted to make sure that our friends here at CB11 are on board with our request and understand that rowing is something that has happened without incident since the year 2006 until 2019 when that Esplanade closed.
Thank you so much, Maureen.
That's it.
Thank you. Yeah, and we appreciate you coming here. I know, you know, we haven't been made too aware of the, you know, what exactly the funding is going to be used for and when. But I know we've had conversations with, you know, Friends of the East River Esplanade, and I believe you're part of that coalition for the East Harlem waterfront. So, you know, it is our goal as a committee to get transparency around how the funding is going to be implemented and to be involved in that process, and in that to involve you and other organizations that have been around working in the community for a long time, to make sure that you know, this is a community-led project. So I hear your concerns, and I know how important they are to you and your organization, and we will memorialize them here, and it is on, you know, our task list to make sure we understand how that funding is going to be rolled out, and to involve you in that process. So I will keep you updated and keep your requests top of mind as we move forward with these things. Are there any questions for East River Crew? Thank you so much, Mary Nell, for being here. And it's wonderful to hear from you and your group.
You're very welcome.
All right. Is Stacy Pappas here with us tonight? I think perhaps.
I'm sorry. I think that she wrote to us saying she would.
Oh,
be
yes.
able to make it.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you, Carly. Okay. Well, I'm sure, you know, they would have the same concerns in terms of being involved in the funding rollout. So we will keep that in mind. And are there any other community-based organizations or parks advocacy groups here tonight who would like to give an update? Going once, going twice. All right, we will move on to presentations and discussions. Thank you, everyone, for the updates. All right, so our first presentation, and I'm hoping that we can keep this a little bit brief because I know that we have heard this presentation before, and this is mainly to refresh our memories as committee members so that we can take a vote for a letter of support for we already gave the letter of support for the flood wall design portion of this project, and this letter of support is specific to the art surrounding this project. So I'm going to pass it over to Miguel.
Good
Welcome
evening,
back.
everyone. Thank you, Jessica. So I will be going through this a little more quickly to get us up to speed. I'm going to share my screen. Can you see the PDF here?
Yes.
On screen? Okay, so I'm going to just kind of flip through prior work examples that were sculpture, painting, and public art projects. To introduce the flood wall project for Metropolitan Hospital and the artwork that will be installed. This is the campus of the flood wall, excuse me, of the hospital. Bird's eye view, these are the existing facades of the hospital where the flood wall is going up. And this is the view from First Avenue and Second Avenue where the artwork will take place. I'm going to go kind of quickly through here, but this shows you just kind of the footprint of that flood wall. These highlighted areas are where artwork will be featured on First Avenue and Second Avenue, the most kind of public facing areas. The precedent for this work was related to a public art project I'd done about the Young Lords in East Harlem called Mapping Resistance, the Young Lords in El Barrio. These are a few images from that project that was up 2018 through 2019. This is still up on 111th in Lexington. And one of the things that we talked about previously was that it's a living history, and these historic images of Iram Maristani, local East Harlem photographer, reactivated, allow the community to sort of see its history in the present. Metropolitan Hospital's fencing, where we hosted 2 images from this project, so I have a previous relationship there. And these are some images that we're incorporating into the artwork. So images from the early to late 60s, early 70s of the neighborhood's history that are both about joy and play and resistance, all coinciding as overlapping histories in our community. These historic images that I'm showing are also at the MoMA PS1 exhibition. Hiram has work featured there currently. Here's what it looks like in site in relation to the artwork, where the photographs, historic images of East Harlem have been sort of reinterpreted into these kind of graphic applications or graphic interpretations. Here's a detail of what that looks like in what will be ceramic frit. That's a permanent pigment applied to glass. So these are kind of glass panels that are installed within the wall on the surface of the flood wall in these nooks that are sort of windows for the artwork. A few details of close-ups and some of the other montages that will kind of shift in color and have this kind of reflective quality also as you walk by them. A few more details here. And this is kind of a representation of the scale of the project on site with passersby. this, the Second Avenue view where the artwork will be situated in the wall. And a sort of another angle from the Second Avenue view, which is the heaviest kind of pedestrian area for the project. It's less visible there, so go back to this detail. But yeah, this is just another kind of recap of this project where the images and the materials remain the same at this stage.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great to see it again. I mean, I love it. So I'm excited for historic images of the community to be brought to this art installation.
Thank you. Same here. Are there any questions that anybody have?
If you have a question, please raise your hand. Everyone's satisfied from the last time. All right.
If that's it, then I'll stop sharing. And thank you again for allowing me to present. And next step is we'll just wait for a letter from you guys, right?
Yep. I'll go ahead and entertain if there are any questions. This is your last chance. Otherwise, if you would like to raise your hand and make a motion, that would be great. All right. Go ahead, Ivy. Thank you so much.
Hi, yeah, I just like to make a motion to write a letter of support for the project. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivy. Natasha?
I was going to second that.
Great. Thank you so much, Natasha.
Okay, I'll call the roll. Elliot,
Yes.
Giordano,
Yes.
Yoon,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
McCullough,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yeah.
Schuler,
Yes.
and Wiltshire Clement.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. All right. Looking forward to seeing it come to life. Thanks for being here. All right. So our next presentation is from NYCHA. This is sort of a tandem presentation with land use this month. So at land use, we'll be having a presentation on, I believe, overall NYCHA resiliency strategies. And tonight we'll be having of that conversation, but focused in on Clinton houses. Is that correct, Adam?
That's correct. Yes.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you for being here, and I look forward to your presentation.
Great. Thank you so much. Let me just make sure I'm on the right screen here. I'm just going to share my screen. Oh, here we go. Got it. Let's see here. There you go. All right. And then, all right, technology. There we go. Okay, very good. There we go. Okay, thanks so much. Again, my name is Adam Benditsky, and I am from the New York City Housing Authority. My colleague Alan Cohn is also here from the Department of Environmental Protection. And I am the program manager for green infrastructure at NYCHA. We are doing multiple types of green infrastructure. A lot of what we do is for combined sewer overflow, but this project is specifically on a cloudburst study. The cloudburst, okay, it's moving. Hold on a second. There we go. Sorry. Okay, so the Clinton Houses Cloudburst project. So this project was actually started by the Mayor's Office of Resiliency with a grant that we got from FEMA to study the possibility of doing a cloudburst at Clinton Houses. The idea was to develop a flood risk reduction project. And the reason for it is to reduce flooding from high intensity cloudbursts through above and below ground solutions. And in order to get the money, in order to do the project, it has to be technically feasible, acceptable to residents of East Harlem and Clinton houses, and meet FEMA's funding requirements. So we've so let me just go back to this. So the idea, we've been working on this project for about a year, and it's mostly at this point is just conceptual. It's absolutely, I don't want anyone to see this as like, this is the final design. It's definitely not. It's really more of the beginning. We just had to see first, the main idea was to do a benefit cost analysis to see if it even would work, if it was even worth going forward. And so we have determined that it is. The project would be a 6-block radius. You can see here where the Clinton houses are. It's between 106th and 110th. 105th rather, 110th, but there is this little, it gets cut off right there. So we have what we call practices in various different locations. A practice is another word for an asset. So that's where it would be located. This is just one example. There are multiple different practices throughout the campus. This is one of the largest. And this is an example of one of the things that we're trying to solve. This is actually from Hurricane Ida. I actually was there on Hurricane Ida. We wanted to see, I'd been hearing multiple different things from different people in the community that were saying that they did not experience flooding in the East Harlem area. So I wanted to see for myself if there was flooding. So at 9 o'clock at night, I rode my bike down to East Harlem from West Harlem where I live. And a colleague of mine and I experienced the full wrath of Hurricane Ida. And this was one of the pictures that we took. So there's absolutely flooding in East Harlem. I can say that firsthand. So this is an idea of a cloudburst solution. This is a really basic baseline rendering. We would definitely want to do more than this, but this is just to show you kind of how it works. So one of the places that NYCHA and DEP do this is in basketball courts because they are very large areas, and we can also do amenities. One of the main things here is this is what's called subsurface retention. And it's a pretty basic idea. These are they're really plastic pipes, I guess, that are bottomless. And they're surrounded in a matrix of stone, gravel. They connect to the catch basin. And rather than having the catch basin go directly to the sewer, it gets redirected to these subsurface tanks. The tanks fill up, and they're quite large, so in some cases they won't even fill up. And then over time, they sink into the groundwater because they are bottomless. They sink into the matrix of stone and then ultimately down into the soil in order to recharge the groundwater. So this is what it would look like during a regular dry day. People could just use the basketball court. This is what it looks like on a rainy day. So that's an idea. Again, like I said, this is a super basic idea. This was really more just because we were doing a kind of trying to figure out if it would even work at all, rather than looking at like really cool concepts. This is a better example of what a cloudburst would be. This is actually something we are actually doing at South Jamaica Houses. We worked with the community for over a year, more than a year, coming up with different ideas. They definitely wanted to do in their basketball court. You can see that it's sunken. I think I'm not sure. I think it's 2 or 3 feet. Could be wrong about that. And because we sunk it, we were able to put this tiered seating. There's ramps for ADA. We're going to be putting in brand new lights as part of the project so that people can play at night. It's actually 2 courts. We are going to be able to renovate both courts. DEP generously is going to be doing both. This is just a concept of a mural. This isn't necessarily what's going to be painted. We haven't talked, we're working with them, actually continuing to work with the community to determine what exactly they'd like to see. But you can see here, there's another example. It's a multi-purpose, what we call water square. And this is, you could do like a farmer's market, you could do movies. There's a lot of different things you can do in this. And then we're also, as part of it, so this is the end of the backyard at South Jamaica, and it comes up like, just South Jamaica is huge, but it comes up like 4 blocks. And so another thing we're doing is bioretention. It's a little hard to tell in this picture, but bioretention is also sunken landscapes. We're going to be putting in decorative boulders so people can sit. There's going to be 2 of these bioretention areas, and I'm just showing you this. It's also makeup, but the reason I'm showing you this is because this is a possible thing that we could also do at Clinton Houses as we build out the project. It has a connecting pathway, and the councilwoman in South Jamaica, Queens, has given us extra money to put lighting and benches along the path. That's not have anything to do with the cloudburst, but the idea is to do placemaking or green infrastructure through placemaking. So it's just an idea of something that, but of course we would work with the community. We wouldn't want to just, do carbon copy of this. We'd want to work with the community to determine what the East Harlem community is interested in, but it'd probably be something in this vein. And then this is just the idea. This is just what we did. PDM is the FEMA grant that we got to study it. We started that in September 2019. We're coming to an end of that. We hope to apply for the BRIC application, but it's at the end of this month. We are contemplating possibly not applying until next year, just so that we can have a better product. Product's quite good already, but we'd like to, we don't want to rush it. And also we want to work with the community to do more design elements, but we may still do that and do the design later. Hasn't been decided yet. But we probably will do it 21 or 2022. And then we'll actually hopefully kick off construction 23, 24. These things are, these are basic ideas of when we hope to do this, but you never know. With the city, sometimes things take longer than you expect or want.
We know that story.
Yeah, exactly. So trust me, I work for the city, but I'm also a resident. So we did a geotechnical investigation, which we were able to see what was below ground. We did a conceptual design and cost benefit analysis to show that it actually will work. And then the final report's coming in. We are going for the FEMA funding, but the mayor's office has already given $10 million for the project, but we might be able to use that in other locations if FEMA will pay for this. So we'd like to do as many as possible. DEP is the sub-applicant, but NYCHA is the agency partner, and NYCHA and DEP work together a lot. NYCHA has a lot of land that works for green infrastructure. But again, this isn't just for NYCHA. I mean, that's where we're putting it. We definitely want it to be a NYCHA amenity, but a lot of the water we're collecting is coming from the street. It's not just water coming from the NYCHA property. It's coming from all around. It's 1 block radius around the property, but because the property is so large, we are pulling in a lot of water from other places. It's not the end all be all solution, right? Green infrastructure is really a system. So this would just be one system. I saw that they were talking about the wall and other things. So there has to be a lot of initiatives. This is just the beginning, and this is just the beginning of this project, but it's definitely a good first step. So thank you.
Thank you, Adam. And we have heard, and I think we've been carrying forward this idea that resiliency is an issue that's worth solving in our neighborhood. So I think we're as a committee learning a lot about different solutions, and I think it would be great to, if I'm not, these completed tasks as to the geotechnical investigation and cost benefit analysis, we're looking at sort of outlining and could use your and Alan's help to sort of outline all the different potential interventions. There could be green infrastructure improvements that could be implemented. And you're noting that a lot of this happens on, is coming from the street. So if you have any, like pieces, toolkits or kit of parts for these kinds of problems, it would be really great if you could send that to us along with these completed tasks that you've shown here. It would be great to understand cost, and I think it's a hard sell to sort of plan money for something that may or may not happen, sort of risk aspect. But I think in East Harlem, we've seen flooding, and we know flooding is a problem, and it's going to be a large scale problem that needs multiple interventions to solve. So we appreciate this project, and especially at a NYCHA community, it would be great if something like what was shown at Queens, where there's sort of placemaking and lighting and, places for people to enjoy what's being built, because it's a dual purpose intervention, in my opinion. So if you could send that to us, and then just to let the committee know that they're asking for a letter of support, you know, to be, I guess, to move forward into design and to get this rolling. And I heard you promise to work with us on what the design would be. So we take that very seriously. And, you know, I would love to get Clinton Houses and their tenant, you know, their associations involved and to get outside committee members involved. So that would be great. Michelle, go ahead.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I have a question on the, you said that there is the pipes that would be underground would be these large plastic type of pipes, and it would be reinforced with some sort of material. In Jamaica, and you have a basketball court on top. Has there been any like further sinking of the basketball court or any sort of cracks or any sort of problems that have arisen because of so much water that has come into that area? Is it with a different type of material that the basketball court is made out of?
So just to be clear, we haven't actually constructed that project yet, where it's still in the design phase, but we're going to be constructing it. But we do have a project where we did something similar at the Van Dyke houses. It wasn't cloudburst, it was just CSO, but it's really kind of the same idea. And they're designed with an engineering spec to hold the amount of weight that would be used. So we even have, a lot of our projects are done in parking lots. And some of them are even done in parking lots where there are exterior compactors. So they have an engineering spec to hold garbage trucks. So yeah, it's definitely all a very scientific method. That DEP, I mean, DEP is an engineering agency really. So Alan, if you want to speak to that more, but I think I definitely hear your question. That's obviously a concern. You wouldn't want it to crack and sink, but no, it is definitely designed to hold weight. Alan, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I think you covered it pretty well, Adam. I think it's actually a great question. I haven't heard that before in the context of the South Jamaica houses. So you know, we'll take it back and just verify that everything we're planning to do, we has in fact considered the weight of a basketball court full of water, but I think again, everything that Adam just said is right. That is typically part of the process when designing these projects, is considering the potential loading above it, including the parking lots that Adam mentioned as well.
Right, and we have practices at Edenwald houses that are in a parking lot, which is not a basketball court, but it's ostensibly the same thing, where cars are driving on over, and we have not experienced that. So that's a lot of porous pavement as well. So
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Carly, go ahead. Honorary committee member.
I just wanted to clarify the ask. So the ask is for a letter of support for the FEMA grant application.
That's correct.
So, you're not even in the design process. This is just the preliminary. Let's see if we can even get the funding from FEMA.
Yeah, and Alan, if you want to speak to this too, it's like Alan, you want to speak to exactly where we're at?
Yeah, so the letter of support would exactly be that, to get the funding from FEMA. We would submit, as it stands right now, our plan is still to submit by the end of this month. We will let you know if that changes. From what I understand, and I believe we do have a representative from emergency management on here who's been helping us with the application process. So Brian, please feel free to chime in if I get any of this wrong. We would submit by the end of this month, and it would be about a year until we hear back, or rather until the process would start with FEMA funding. We would hear back, I think, before then, sometime early next year, middle of next year, about whether we received the funding. But all that being said, we are moving forward with design regardless. So that process, and the process of going through the FEMA funding application for the construction funding will not stop us or slow us down from pursuing further advancing the design.
Hi, this is
Thank you.
Brian. This is Brian Kemp, the Mitigation Program Manager with Emergency Management. So I just wanted to echo what Alan and Adam said. There's approximately, the sub-application is due to FEMA at the end of this month. It's approximately 6 or 7 months before we hear back from the grant. Obviously, that could, that would be approximately 1 year behind that if it was submitted for the following year. And then that would be for the construction of the water square.
Okay, great, thank you. So I do have some follow-up questions to that then. So so if this committee were to issue a letter of support, one, it would be, would be really helpful if we can be provided with some language. Two, language about, what to include in the letter of support. Two, I'm wondering, so if we move forward with this letter of support, are there other, junctures at which your team would come to present the design? Would that would you require approval from us, and so forth? That's just my question.
I don't know that it requires approval per se, but we would definitely, in my opinion, that's really important that the community be involved in it. It's a community project. We want it, we're here to serve the community. That's what, in my opinion, city agencies are for. So I know with South Jamaica, we worked with an organization, Green Collective, that helped us do the shredding process. Not sure if we'll have the funds for that, but we could just do it in-house as well. So that is the goal right now. We may even have the money to work with Grain again. I don't know. I couldn't say at this point. But yeah, I don't think to answer your question, I don't think the grant requires approval going forward, but we would want to just work with the community because that's what you should do.
Sorry, real quick, I'll just add that we've been working really, again, using the South Jamaica houses as an example, been working very closely with the Tenants Association and both at different phases of design. So presenting the concepts and different alternatives. And Adam, I think, and a few others are actually going out there for their family day this Saturday to present the final product, that resulted from their feedback, as well as some options for the design of the basketball court, like the painting on the basketball court. So hope to follow that precedent.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. And we'll likely include language in our letter of support that, speaks to, the community engagement process as you move forward. And I think that's all I have. I will mute myself now. Thank you.
Thank you, Carly.
I'll also just mention that we do, as part of the PDM grant that we did, we are creating a final report, which should be done this month. It needs to be done this month. So I will definitely provide you guys with the whole report. That has the geotech results, it has the benefit cost analysis, and it's all in FEMA language. So hopefully someone knows how to understand that. But yeah, so we'll definitely provide you with that.
I want to say I appreciate that you've come to our committee meeting so early on in this process before you even receive funding. I think, we're also working on these issues. So we're working on community engagement. We're working on resiliency, and, we would love to help, carry these processes through and to help involve the community and everything. So, I don't know if you heard us mention, but we also applied for a grant for $500,000 to, and it's surrounding parks and resiliency and community involvement. So, not sure that we'll ever get it, but, and similarly, I think that we have a lot of opportunities to work together, and the need is great in our community. And I wanted to say, to commend you for coming so early. And I really want to encourage you to go ahead and submit for FEMA. You got this.
Okay.
Are there any other questions from the board? If anyone would like to entertain a motion. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yes, I would like to provide a letter of support from this committee
In support of the project.
in support of the project.
Thank you, Michelle. Is there a second? Go ahead, Connie.
I'll second.
Thank you, Connie.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'll call the roll. Elliot,
Yes.
Giordano,
Yes.
Hume, Ivy, okay, move forward. Lee,
Yes.
Baculo,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yeah.
Schuler,
Yes.
Wiltshire Clement,
Yes.
and I'll circle back to Ivy Hume.
Yes. Thanks.
Okay, great. Motion carries.
Thank you so much for being here and for bringing this project forward.
Thank you so much. And we look forward to working with you guys in the future.
Great. And we'll look forward to you sending those final reports and presentations, and we'll keep in touch.
Yeah, they're not ready quite yet, but when they
That's
are,
okay.
I'll definitely send them
I understand how it goes.
to you.
Thank you.
How are you going?
You too.
Just for a point of process, so we're gonna send this recommendation to support the application and the project to the full board. The full board will vote on November 23rd. Just so you know when to expect a letter, should the board approve it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carly.
Try to stop sharing.
No worries.
All right. Oh, look at us. We're doing great. So we have a little bit of old business and a little bit of new business. In terms of the DEP, so I forget what we were talking about on this, Carly. I'm so sorry. The DEP solar energy project.
Yeah, we just mentioning it. We haven't taken a vote yet, or you haven't taken a
yes.
vote yet.
Thank you. Okay, so I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but so they're going to EcoDev this month. They couldn't fit it on their schedule last month, so it's the same situation as Drive Shack. Unfortunately, last month, but we're going to keep it simple.
Yeah, I'm waiting on a confirmation from DEP about the EcoDev meeting, but yeah, right now, nothing to report.
Okay, so I just wanted, before, the goal here is that, we'll take consensus from, again, like Drive Shack, any conditions from our committee in terms of a letter of support, and then we'll take a vote at executive, since we don't want to take a vote on that and then have two separate votes potentially. So we'll vote in executive only. And so if there are any, I guess, any thoughts on whether or not we would support or want to support that project, and if there are any conditions, and they're going to EcoDev just mainly to, get input on the hiring, local hiring, and jobs creation and impacts in that committee. But for us, I think it's pretty straightforward. So if anyone has any thoughts on a yes or no to a letter of support and or conditions, please raise your hand. It can be as simple as yes or no too, so don't feel pressured. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yes to A, no to B.
Oh, we're only talking about A so far, so just hold on there. Okay, so we have a general yes for a letter of support for the DEP energy solar installation project. Does anyone have any objections to, if whatever conditions come out of EcoDev, that we go ahead and support with that committee? Okay. I would love to hear from one or two more people so that we can have a, thank you, Connie.
I absolutely think we should support that project. You know, those are the kind of projects we need to be looking at going forward in that type of building. The rezoning did not include, you know, any encouragement to do green building of any sort. So I do think we need to support this.
Go ahead, Russell.
I support, I second it.
Ivy, go ahead.
Yeah, I also totally agree with what's already been stated. I think any kind of steps towards sustainability, as kind of modest as they are, I think, as well as just having the visibility of solar power and making it more kind of making it more visible in the community in general.
Thank you all. I agree with you. So if there are no objections, if everyone could lower your hands if you don't have any comments, I'll just say, please raise your hand if you have an objection to supporting this should EcoDev and our committee vote to. Go ahead, Michelle.
Can you hear me right now?
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure that we had spoken previously about having some of that energy, the excess energy, be placed in the community batteries that they do generate when there is a lower voltage in our area. I want that to be part of the letter so that it's included right away instead of something that's an afterthought.
If I remember correctly, Carly, I think we talked about this last month, and they mentioned that there wouldn't be any impact on consumers, and that the point is to reduce emissions overall for the city. So it's direct to the city and not, you know, based in any districts or neighborhoods. The impacts aren't going to be carried through in that scale, if that makes sense.
No, that's not what I'm saying. They're saying that they might have an excess with the batteries that are powered overnight, and especially during the times when we need energy throughout the city, and there are lower energy times, that they might, or that they can have those batteries circulated throughout the city. So it's not to increase our usage, but to aid our usage.
Right. Yeah, I'm just looking back at my notes. They said the batteries would be used to for demand response to help take pressure off the plants to prevent blackouts and brownouts. I think that their battery storage, they mentioned, will not be used immediately and will only be used to help with peak demands.
Yes.
Okay, and then they also mentioned that that's on Con Ed. Con Ed would be the holders, I guess. So if we could, I'll write that down as a you know, idea for a condition to talk about peak demands, and you know, maybe you could give me the verbiage for that. It doesn't have to be now.
Yeah, I'll give it later.
Okay, perfect. So I'll look forward to an email from you, Michelle. And Mary, now I see your comments in the chat. Sorry for my shorthand. EcoDev is for Economic Development and Culture Committee, which is one of our many committees. And the project, in a nutshell, is to do solar installations at Ward's Island, which would seek to address issues of climate change through the mayoral directives and other legislation, and to help us reach 100% neutrality by 2050. So it's an existing facility, and they're going to put a variety of solar installation types and have battery storage to help, like we were talking about with the peak demands. And they're in the design process with construction beginning in 2023 at some point. Hopefully that was helpful. Michelle, do you have another question or comment?
No, I'm excited about it.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, seeing no hands, we will see what comes out of economic development and culture, and I will pass along, Michelle, your thoughts in that committee as we formalize a letter for that. So thank you all for your input. And in regards to Drive Shack, I know this is a contentious topic, I know, and for good reason. I don't mean to demean anyone's thoughts on the community involvement. I just want to frame the process quickly. So right now, we are tasked with a letter of support for the design only. So as Drive Shack came to our committee, they did say on record that they plan to work with the community in terms of the programming and outreach and accessibility of the services to the community. But alas, that is not part of this letter of support. This is solely the design of the project. So I think that we have in our new business a topic to start following up on what things we will be asking from Drive Shack specifically, but also in terms of all letters of support. I think there's a general need in the community board across all of our committees for some sort of guideline process. And I've heard from Malik, I've heard from Jessica Morris, and a number of other people, Debbie Quinones, about this process, and that we need to formalize a checklist or expectations so that we get less of these presenters coming and saying we need a letter of support tomorrow, and whatever. They're not. We have a process, and we have things that we would want, usually like local hiring, to be included in these things. So setting up a standardization for that. So we needed to discuss a letter of support for the design only, with the acknowledgement that we will be working with Drive Shack, and we have a shared document that Carly has started with all of the input from full board as to what those advocacy questions are. I'm going to go to Carly first before I go to you, Ivy, and then go ahead, Carly.
Yeah, so I did not prepare what I was going to say, so bear with me. So yeah, as Jessica said, the ask was for a letter of support. I did some research earlier this week on Drive Shack and its history with Randall's Island, and it seems as though Drive Shack was awarded this concession contract with Randall's Island in 2018. I think that all of the points that everybody raised at full board are really valid and also really valuable input. But my question is whether, I'm concerned. I have a few concerns, but I am concerned that ultimately Drive Shack doesn't need to consult with us on these things, and I'm concerned that if we, I don't want the community board to overplay their hand and ultimately push them away so that they don't feel as inclined to, I'm sorry, putting my charger in, to work with us if they don't actually need to. Now this position, what I'm saying here, I'm saying this as your staff liaison. I'm not saying this as, I don't think that anyone needs to agree with me, but I kind of, and if anybody knows better, I kind of feel as though the issues that everybody was raising lies, yes, with Drive Shack, but also with Parks and Randall's Island and how they go about awarding these contracts, because I don't know what has happened in the past when we didn't provide letters of support for the design to address to PDC. they'll turn around and say, well, oh, like we don't even need a letter of support. All we need is a letter of acknowledgement. And that's happened since working. It needed a letter of acknowledgement that they have presented to our committee. And yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is I kind of want to begin, raising some questions about how the city goes about awarding these contracts and making sure that the community board, yes, continues to advocate for what they believe in, but make sure they do so wisely and do so not at the expense of, just do so wisely. And yeah, so if somebody has any, further clarification as to how these decisions were made, maybe I am misguided. I think this kind of speaks to what Jessica mentioned earlier about the committee's overall goal to seek out transparency from agencies, because the process isn't always that clear to me too. So yeah, that's all I'll say. And if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer. I recognize that my opinion might not be a popular one, but I did want to raise it because, again, I just care about the work that you produce.
Thank you, Carly. And just to go over what's in the screen, the first 3 bullets are what we agreed upon in executive as the 3 conditions for the letter of support. And then at full board, the additional points that were raised. Some of them I think are really valuable, and others I think are not. I think if you look into Drive Shacks as an organization and what they provide, for example, they do already provide the equipment for everyone to use. So the ask for free equipment and uniforms for East Harlem youth. Golf teams don't wear uniforms, at least in our school we had a little shirt, but I think that maybe some asks like that are like Carly said, we don't want to overplay our hand here, and some things might be worth asking for over others. So I'll go to Ivy first and then to Connie, and please raise your hands if you have any comments.
Yeah, so this might be like a stupid question, or to me it's sort of obvious, but I don't know. Anyway, sorry, I'm babbling. But basically the ask is for a letter of support for the design. And we basically, I have not seen a single image of this thing. And to me, as an architect, a design means it's a design, it's a drawing. It's a visual aid.
They presented on this. I don't know that you were here.
I wasn't here. Okay.
Okay.
No,
they gave a whole presentation on the design.
So are there actual, can we revisit that again? Because just not to conflate the issue, I totally have, in terms of the principle of this project, I feel like I totally am opposed to it, just personally. However, if we're supposed to be opining on the design, then I think we should look at it together.
I don't have the presentation, unfortunately, but from memory, there's a lot of resilience aspects. They're doing planned parks around the entrance. It's open to the public. They have restaurants, food service and free internet and community space for people to use, even if they're not. So Carly's going to send the presentation following the meeting, but they have an interesting design for the roof structure over the mini golf area. So it's essentially enlarging slightly the hitting bays that are existing, and then adding mini golf and beautifying the property, the area around the property, and then adding resilience and I believe solar panels, if I'm not wrong.
Okay, and then I guess I had another kind of follow up to that. So let's say, just for argument's sake, the design is beautiful and we like it. We think it's it looks great aesthetically. This is like superficial judgment. In that case, is this project seamlessly, going to move forward without that determination anyway, I guess is a question I have.
Yeah, so that's my concern, especially as it relates to the PDC. And I'm not saying I agree with it, but I think the city's process, my previous experience with writing letters of support, with projects that need letters of support for PDC, if we didn't grant it, we had to send over a letter of acknowledgement. And I actually, the flood wall design, we did not give a letter of support for that. We sent a letter of acknowledgement to PDC because the committee and the full board did not vote in time for it. And we couldn't, like, we did see it. We couldn't deny that, we saw it at the committee, they presented. So I would have to clarify, but I think that's my main concern, that they were granted the contract and they only need a letter of acknowledgement.
Okay, then I just have one more tiny point, like pursuant to that, because if that's really the case, and I think this circles back to what Carly was getting at earlier, like we might want to be somewhat like strategic in this letter, because maybe we want to acknowledge the design is fine, or we want to somehow like have some like pork barreling tactics of like adding other requirements or suggestions that are cloaked under the kind of title or heading of design, but they're really, features that we feel improve the community. So it's just a kind of thought.
Thank you, Ivy. I think that's a great point. And I think, if I was going to say anything about the design, it would have been about the resiliency, which it seems like they're getting like grade A resiliency interventions in this project that, we're not able to see throughout the district. So I'm not sure how to word that in a way that doesn't sound like I'm being a jerk about it. But, I think the resiliency is where we could, the design around resiliency is somewhere we could possibly comment.
Yeah, and I'll just say, I'll do some digging too about the process. What happens if we don't do anything? What happens if we don't provide a letter of support? What happens if we do provide a letter of support with conditions? I think there's a lot of mystery around that.
Thank you. Connie?
So I did want to just tag on to what Carly was saying. She's absolutely right. The community board does not have the power or the authority to approve or disapprove the project. When the Parks Department is presenting that design, it's really more of a courtesy. And it is an opportunity to, maybe point out a design flaw that might be detrimental to the community, or to point out, positive aspects of the design. And Carly's right, we shouldn't overplay our hand, because, haven't been on the other side where Parks has asked me to, present to the community board. And, loosely quoting, it's like, can you please go and present? We don't need anything from them. You don't need the approval. You already have the approval. It's a done thing, but we just need to do it as a courtesy. So, it's unfortunate, but the Parks Department is, even before they were asking for community input in a design of any type of park, they've already have a design down on paper. And they've already worked on it for 6 months. So if anything, I think what we might want to do is, outside of this project, like if we take each project and try and put in, all these little digs, I think we're better off telling the Parks Department that we only want to see presentations at the earlier stages. And if they're waiting until they've already approved it, already designed it, that they have, or as far as we're concerned, they've already left the community out of the conversation. For several years, I think there's been an attempt to try and play nice with our city agencies. And I think the thing that I personally have realized in the last couple of years, and it's not just me, I think we have to accept the fact that our city agencies have failed miserably at doing their jobs. And the constant excuse that, well, we don't have it in the budget. That's just rhetoric. They're really just responding in a way to manage expectations. So I just feel like we need to be approaching this from a different angle and maybe not play so nice anymore.
Thank
Agree.
you, Connie. Thank you, David. Go ahead, Carly.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sorry, I probably did say this, but again, I think that, I agree with everything everyone has already said. And I think that the real issue is, we weren't part of the conversation when they were awarding this contract. From what I understand, so Drive Shack, Paul is from I don't remember, there's some golf organization, American Golf Association or something, that's a subsidiary of Drive Shack. And previously that same organization, not Drive Shack, was involved with the Randall's Island tennis center. So there is like a history, like a history between the organization and the city. But still, I know that there are some, again, I'm gonna have to dig deeper into this. I know that we have received like notices of public hearings and notices of public hearings for concessions and contracts. So I think maybe that's something that the community board office joint with the community board could be better about looking at, better about, tracking and testifying. But I do think that generally, unfortunately, it feels a little bit late in the process. And I think I don't want to miss out on the opportunity to collaborate with them just because, we're frustrated with how the city goes about doing their business. That said, you don't need to take my advice. It's just something like they did seem willing. It does seem that the project is moving through. So I think that we need to approach this from a collaborative, this specific project from a collaborative standpoint.
Thanks, Carly. And just to remind the committee that this is about Drive Shack and a letter of support for design. And then under new business, which will be coming up shortly, we'll be talking about the letter of support guidelines and checklist. And I think we should also talk about the follow-up process, like to avoid what happened with the tennis. So David, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think Carly's absolutely right. It's gotten to the point where they don't even need approval. It's more just we went before the board or we didn't. I think the more of it is to create the atmosphere that we didn't ignore the board by not going before the community. So it's not even letter of support because this project will go through. But I think, again, this just reiterates the whole thing with the tennis center and what happened. And it was real interesting because in the conversation I had with Angel post one of our meetings, he indicated that the other guy, Rick, I forget his name offhand, was the one that was involved with the tennis. So again, they knew what ask we would want in this particular, when you come before Community Board 11, what the issue is going to be, the hiring, right? Usage. And so again, it's all like we're part of the process of the game. Let's just play the game to go through the process, as opposed to let's really go through this process to say what's really best for the community, as this is now taking up space and occupying space in the community. So I know I kind of was a little bit more honorary in parks and much more on full board, but I looked at it different with executive and in youth because at that point I was representing the committee and not myself as a board member. And, again, when we represent our committee, if the committee voted and felt this way, even though I may have voted differently, I have to represent what the committee's vote is. And yeah, again, let's stop giving. Let's stop acknowledging when we're not getting anything that's really concrete in return. And I keep saying, we request 30% jobs or whatever it is. Require this. If you want our, it's again, if we give it with holes, then we ain't getting those holes filled. So I will not support this project because they still haven't come with real things, right? Again, when you present to me, and I'll say it for the last time, we're going to address the golf, the high schools that do golf. Where? Not ours. Not even DOE cities. So who are they talking about? Dalton School where kids pay 40, 50,000 to go. Let them go pay for their own golf course to go golfing. You know, again, why does it come at the backs of people who have the land but don't have the usage?
Thank you, David. Russell?
Based on what Carly and Connie said, giving us a negotiating or a respectable position in thinking. So, you know, the old adages, don't cut off your nose to spite your face. But we have to begin to, we're in a catch-22 in a no-win situation. We're trying now to really count our losses. Someone said hope we get. So we most realistically know, those of us that have been here for a while know that we're not going to get anything out of it, but they're not obligated. But I think out of self-respect for who we are, we should not be voting for things that have already been approved in rubber stamps. And we should respectfully find a way to communicate that we are giving an acknowledgement that you have come before us for something that was already pre-approved. So they can understand that we have given it considerable thought. We're maintaining our self-respect and just not even saying respect the process, will go along with the process, because whether we have a voice in it or not is of no consequence. And then see where it goes, because I'm experienced with how no matter how we fight for things before a contract or during it, we don't get what we want. And at the full board meeting, someone suggested protests. We have to be beyond protest. That means someone has already gotten what they want. And then it's a matter of an endurance game on how long we're going to be protesting for something that we have no rights for anymore. So I would think that we got to think through, how do we just, for me, how do we acknowledge that you came here with a project that was approved? You showed your respect, and we are showing our respect by saying we acknowledge you were here.
Thank you, Russell. Do you think, Russell, that instead of a letter of support or a letter of non-support, that a letter of acknowledgement with our conditions would be more suitable?
We will have to attach that. We need to let people know you came here as a formality. I mean, we can't insult ourselves. We should not be supporting things that we almost diametrically opposed to or process. It's like getting slapped in the face and then we say, okay, that was all right. You can go forward now. Let's acknowledge it. Like I said, we have to find a way where we're communicating our message of acknowledgement that it was a done deal. Yeah. You didn't have to come here. You came here based on protocol of following every step of a process. If they didn't have to follow a process, they wouldn't even do the formalities of doing it. So we can't be all the time approving things to save face, like we're doing something against someone who's doing something against us. They're not bringing things to the table saying that we wanted to do things to benefit the community first, even though we had a contract pre-approved. They're not coming. We have to ask for it or demand it, fight for it, and lose. So I'm saying, how do we just let them know we understand? You stopped here as a formality. We're acknowledging the formality. We acknowledge that we have no say-so in it. Did you already have your contract with the Parks Department, all the agencies that you needed to do? You're fulfilling a process, and we're acknowledging the process. Attached to that, in saying that, these were our requests, because we won't be able to demand anything, and let's just see how it resonates with them to prove a point, what they will do or what they won't do, and we'll just see. Because we have no win in this game. They have no incentive to win. I mean, to concede anything. Because like an old wound, we'll be wounded now, other issues come up, and then we'll forget about it, just like we forgot about the tennis situation.
Thank you, Russell. I see, Carly, you can go ahead, and then I'm going to go to John Green, and then should move forward.
I think it's exactly what you said, Russell. I think that despite, feeling as though this is not a win for the community, I think it's still worthwhile to undergo the exercise of examining what you want from them and requesting it. It's better to request it than not to. So that is why Jessica and I put this together and, compiled all the notes from the full board. Because ultimately, as Ivy said earlier, and Connie said, and everyone said, it will happen. So it's worth the effort to come at this from a collaborative perspective. But you don't have to forego this idea or the frustration that the city's process doesn't allow for meaningful community engagement. So I think that there is a way to do all that you raised, Russell. I think that there is a way to include, not only in our formal communication to the PDC and to Drive Shack and to Randall's Island, but also in our informal conversations with them. So I think that my next step, as your staff liaison, is one, to do a little bit more research on the PDC process, and just generally, like, not just the PDC process, but like the contract awarding process. And then two, to send a follow-up email to Drive Shack and let them know that, the community board has not voted on a letter of support. These are their concerns and these are their requests. And, can we have a conversation about, whether or not you're able to abide by these requests? Yeah. So yeah, those are my next things.
It's almost like we should write the letter to them saying, right, that we are not in support of this and cannot be until certain conditions, or that they would meet to discuss them. Because again, all they're coming for is, this is our design, vote on it, don't vote on it. It don't matter. But where do we make the statement? I think that's what Russell's saying too, is where do we now take a position? And Connie referred to that too. It's like we go along with this process. So then for them, it's okay. For them, we're not of any significance in making a decision about this.
Yeah, I think though that the real issue is with the city. I think that, like, the Drive Shack is just one example, is the latest perpetrator of, they're acting completely within the, confines of what is permitted, so I think that the real issue is the city's process.
No, you're right, Carly, it is, because anybody will take advantage of whatever process or adhere to, right? And if I don't have to adhere to just going and, I mean, the fact that we still give an acknowledgement, that's all they really need. That they came before the community.
I let you go the first time, but you got to raise your hand. I'm going to go to John, and who's had his hand up, and then David, if you want to continue. Go for it.
Good evening, everybody. Now, what I'm about to say, I'm speaking for me and only me. I totally agree with Carl. The thing is, this is a collaborative thing. And the way I look at this, the request basically involves Eco Dev, Parks, and Youth and Education. And in order to get one of the things, excuse my phone, the thing is that they may feel that communities like ours may not have people who are interested in golf. The thing is that we may have to show them that there are kids that we may have to ask around. And say we didn't think anybody. So well, here's the proof. Here's these kids that we have that are interested in learning about golf. Then the things they can't say that like they tried and then they couldn't find anybody. I mean, so the thing, sometimes you have to do things the hard way, and people make you do things the hard way, but sometimes it's necessary in order to possibly get what you want.
Thank you, John. Okay, so it sounds like we have, we can do a letter of acknowledgement and say, what things that we want. We can use what we've agreed to in executive and then add whatever we'd like from full board. We could do a letter of non-support. We could do nothing. It's up to you all. So it sounds like there might be it seems split between a letter of acknowledgement with conditions and a letter of non-support with conditions. If that makes sense. Russell, you still have your hand up. I just wanted to check in.
We would be giving it support if we just by merely going through the process.
Right.
We didn't, if we were to say we're not even going to address it, then we will be showing total defiance in the process. We're not doing that. But we should not be made, forced to, because of process, have to vote favorably for it. Because that makes, in my mind, absolutely no sense. We are not in agreement with it. We don't see any benefit in it. John said we should fight for something. This is a fight that will be fruitless, in my opinion. There will be a fight that'll be exercise of futility, exerting energy where it could be better placed doing other things, especially that way. So let's just say we're going along with the process because we have agreed, now that we've been educated, that our voice does not really has minimal substance other than going into their records. It will go into their records if we approved it, that yes, we got full support for Community Board 11. Yeah. And that's not true.
Okay, thank you, Russell. David, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I'll just say, I think maybe let's put some of it to task, right? So even at this point that we don't give a letter of support or acknowledgement or whatever we give, let's reach out to them and say, we'd like to set up a meeting with our high school in the community and the superintendent, and I'll make that happen because you said you want to serve the kids, and let's see you really set this up even before condition is made, because this is what they said they would do, right?
Yeah.
So I'm saying let's put them to task, or maybe the Youth and Education Committee, and we meet Tuesday, is that we can say we're going to reach out to Drive Shack to begin the process of community engagement with our local high schools. And I'll reach out to Elsie as well and see if we can utilize her high school with charter schools. So we're connecting it with people that represent the board. And let's see, before we give you support or a letter, even acknowledgement, you said you want to do this. Let's do this. Right? Then we see where they really are at.
All right. Well, I think both, let's let Carly reach out for initial coordination, and then maybe she can share that with you before youth and education, and we can continue to discuss this in our 3 committees, and then revisit again in executive. We're just going to be packing executive with our action items. So Russell, I saw your hand up. I want to come back to you.
Basically, we're back at square one. We're only voting for design. So when you said earlier that they're gonna come back anyway, let's bring up those issues at other points. I just think we should make a profound statement that we're going with the process because this is the process, and this is what you're getting to move forward with your process. And at another juncture, because we'll be fighting a pre-fight that won't be acknowledged, that the people that are going, the agency that's going to review it, because they're just thinking about design. They don't even have to read it. They don't have to acknowledge it because that's not in their ball. That's not on their court. So now at the next round, we should have a strategy on how to move forward from that point. But just give a basic acknowledgement on what we're doing right now for their design. Our opinions are not needed for the design. And
is there a next round though?
They have to come back. That's what Jessica said.
No, I don't think they have
I'm
to.
not sure they have to come back.
No, right. That's what I'm saying.
But it sounds like the plan for right now is that Carly is going to reach out to them, use all of our input to discuss with them our, conundrums as to our issues and our concerns, and ask if they would be willing to work with us on these concerns. And then we'll go from there on our in the youth and education, eco dev, and executive committees moving forward. Is that correct, Carly?
Yes, I'll definitely reach out. It seems as though right now, if this were to go through full board again, it wouldn't get a favorable vote. So I'm gonna, first start with the reaching out to them and then see where that goes.
Okay, so we're not gonna take any action tonight. I think we don't want to revisit what happened at executive or full board again. So I think our new business topic to discuss letters of support in general and the follow-up process and all of that will be much more fruitful, and then we can use that to better inform how we move forward with things like Drive Shack and Drive Shack moving forward. Is that okay with everyone? Does anyone have any final concerns or anything about all of that? David, your hand's up.
That was from before, but I'll hold off on it in there. But again, I think if they are really serious about this happening and planning, I want to see action.
Yep. I agree. Okay, Malik.
Yes. Thank you for everyone, all your comments. I appreciate that, the insightfulness of everything that was discussed this evening. To that point, this is something that me and that I discussed with Jessica about last week or so. And it's basically we need to actually put action to this on what we want, not what we should have or why, or on paper, so that everyone knows, including the companies that comes forth to us, what we already expect from them. And we just need to have it on paper now. I mean, with this committee and prior, we've been talking about this for a while, but we just never had nothing exactly on paper besides licenses and permits. But as far as this committee, I feel like we need to have something. I feel like we need to have it across all committees. Pretty much something generic, but tailored to each committee. And I just want to know how can we move forward and just putting it on paper so that as a community board, everyone who comes to our different committees, not just parks, but every committee that we have, they know what they're coming into, and we don't, they won't guess and they won't, come last minute because they already know, and they may not know the exact moment, but in the future, they're gonna know ahead of time that they needed to come earlier or they needed to come prepared. They need to give us a certain amount of slots, whatever percentages in schools or in jobs or whatever the case may be. I just want us as a community board and as members to come up with that plan and how could we just move forward into implementing that on paper.
No, thank you, Malik. And because of our conversation, we've added that to the agenda tonight. So I wanted to keep that a little bit separate from Drive Shack because I think it's helpful to think about Drive Shack as an example, but things that you brought up in terms of process are so correct. People come in to the community board and ask for a letter of support for something in 2 weeks from now, and that's just not how it works. So I think our community board, like you said, is in need of this for every committee, and because each committee only has so much time, and this is I feel like we're taking it on as parks in response to the Drive Shack, but not really. I think it's just something that we want to push forward incrementally so that other committees can take what we've put together to sort of, adjust and make it whatever they need for their committees. So I think, we'll go ahead and skip to B before A on this new business so that we can just continue talking about this. But unfortunately, I am a little bit unprepared in terms of a Google document to pull up in front of you, but I promise that I will, similarly to how we've done previous things in relation to other letters of support and things that we've talked about, I will be providing you with a Google documents link so that we can start to list out everything that we can think of in terms of pre-committee meeting, during the committee meeting, what we're asking for, what the next steps are, what are we doing to follow up. So I'll outline, a set of, timelines in terms of like that I just mentioned. So, so that we can start to just dump our information that we want to see as our committee. And I think we should just go ahead and list anything across any committee. So anything about affordable housing, anything about local hiring, just to get it all and we can share this with the full board and just start, I think it'll take much more than tonight to do this. Obviously, I'm not even going to give you the document until after this meeting, but I think that we can revisit this next month and start to take a look at what we've gathered and start to parse it down for our committee and to share our learnings and things with other committees. Go ahead, Malik.
Well, Dave, I know you chair youth and education, but this is kind of a request from me to Dave and Jessica. When you get to when y'all have executive, can you please bring up, what we're discussing here to possibly, I don't know if we can, I don't know, yes, you're right, we're not going to get it done today, but possibly we can start the process of making sure that everyone knows like what we need to do as a community board 11. And what we will not know is the things that, housing may want to require. You get what I'm saying? To make it to housing and everything. So I just, if y'all can bring it up into executive to see what are the possible ways that we can possibly get this done. We know it's not going to be done today or this month, but if we can start the process of it, and even if we have to do a separate committee or is done with a group of people out, not from different committees, or if it's done in executive, whichever way, we think, we should be done. But I just want to start that process so that everyone can kind of know, and even it could be brought up in full board so that, now it's getting into people's minds, what could be required, from coming forth from each committee.
I'll just add the presentation form that we used kind of came out of my frustration with these same issues with parks, youth, and at that time, health and education. I want to commend y'all. Basically as I'm hearing this is like, it's taking what we started with the presentation form and now really evolving it. And then also customizing it or tailor-made certain things to questions for specific committees. So first I want to commend you both too for taking this on, but just do it. And I think then we spread it out. Like when we eventually did that presentation form, I just threw something together. There've been a few changes over the year, but it can really be fully developed further just based on what you're saying. And I think we're getting smarter on what we need to ask. And I think we need to make sure people understand these are the things that would make the presentation more of substance for us if you address these things that we already know are all concerns. So I think you should continue to work on it. Just get a draft out. Let all the committees address and look at the draft and have any suggestions themselves. So we all take a part of ownership. But this is the same thing we did with the presentation form. People come before us and we didn't even know they wanted a letter of support. So that was the first thing. What do you want when you come here, right? And then I think as we learned, there are very specific things to committees, but in general, there's specific things to the community that could be like that page in addition with, and maybe combine it with the presentation form, and then have addendums for this committee or that committee, and that we pull from those different things. So I say just get it down as quick as you can and let us all start processing it, Jessica and Malik, and it'll happen, because I believe that whenever we have tools that help us do our jobs, it holds us better accountable, but also make sure we don't forget certain things. So the same way we evolved this whole process with the budget needs and coming up with new members, coming up with the idea of a tracking form, this is how we do better ourselves as a community. So let's make it happen. I'm if you get it to us, Jessica, we'll put it in youth to look at real quick, or at least get it out to members. And yeah, it won't be done this month, but it's a process, and let's go for it. Go for it.
Thanks, David. Yeah, the goal is really to just kick it off, and that our, we'll focus obviously on our committee, and that, I think we should add any elements that across committees, because I think every committee is interrelated in some way, but we'll definitely bring this up at executive to let everyone know that we're working on it, and then likely share what we've started, maybe next month. But I just want to see how, sometimes I send out Google documents and I send reminders and not a lot happens on them. So I'm just asking that everyone really take the time to think of what you would want organizations and public and private to know about what you and our committee would want to see in order to give a letter of support and across any type of project. So I need your input, and I will send that out tonight, I promise. And if you could please just take time over the next week or two to input your thoughts, we will carry this through and revisit it next month. So thank you, everyone, and thank you to everyone. I know Malik and others who have brought this up. It's a dire need, I think, for the whole community board. So we'll get it started and get everyone else, something to work off of, so it's easier. Any other comments about letter of support committee guidelines at this point? I see John's hand in the chat.
Thank you. Malik, I want to thank you for making that statement. I totally agree with that.
You're muted, John.
Oh, sorry. I thought I had unmuted myself. Like I said, Malik, I thank you for making that statement. It's a great idea. And like you said, it would probably mean the creation of another committee, but I think it will help the community board a great deal.
Great. Thank you, John. All right, and so we're going to move on to, I think, our last item, which is last month we had talked about a community spotlight idea that we've talked about before, but I think we've always just had so much going on. So I think Carly has reignited this thought. So I think the idea is generally that we set up some sort of premise as to recognizing people who are doing great work in terms of environment, open space, and parks. I'm sure we can all think of 4 or 5 people right off the top of our heads. We can do a spotlight on that. I know Carly probably thought about this a little bit more. I deleted my email that I had drafted about this a year ago, so I don't remember what my original points were. But I'm going to let you go ahead, Carly, and we can discuss what this looks like, and this will also probably not be accomplished this month. Oh, Carly does not want to be called. Just kidding. Okay, so I guess, like, and thinking back to originally when I thought about this, there was a man, as I mentioned last meeting, that Amir, who lives in the heritage buildings, who stands outside on Madison Avenue and sweeps the streets and says hello to everyone, and is just like a shining light in my little street area. So another person I can think of off the top of my head is Simone, who runs Green and Blue Eco Care. I noticed when we were at the Open Streets Halloween event for children this weekend, Jessica Morris had pointed out the sprayed message on drains on the streets that say these are not trash cans. That is the hand of her and her organization, and obviously she just does so much. So I think as a first honoree of the community spotlight idea, she would be a great choice. But in general, I would be curious, Carly, to your opinion as to whether this would be something we highlight in a newsletter, or and we give them like a letter that says thank you, and everyone in the committee, if you have thoughts on this, we'll continue to think about this month to month, but we'll get it started this month.
Yeah, I think that I mean, we can certainly highlight them in our newsletter. We can highlight them in our social media. It's at no cost to the community board to print out a certificate and send it. If we were in person, I'd say we can, invite them, but we're not right now, maybe for the future. But I also just wanted to say that, to Jessica's point, like for the person she mentioned earlier, the first person she mentioned, I'm sorry, Jessica, I forget his name, but the person who sweeps the streets, like, I think it's really, I think it's really important to acknowledge those like who, in addition to those who are parts of formal organizations, even if they are like grassroots groups, I also want to make sure we acknowledge, simultaneously those who just do it. They wake up and they're like, I'm going to do that. And they're like constant in all of our lives. I'm sure everybody can think of one person. So yeah, I had just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Michelle?
I would like to add to that, to not only to write a letter, but and to acknowledge them, but to also add it to our website, to like have a bio of saying, who this person is and how they are contributing this beautiful community that we have and why they're doing it. So not just to have one form, but to have a few different forms to say that thank you in ways that would help an organization to gain more traction, but in a way also to leave a legacy for that person, that individual who gets up in the day and say, I want to do this. I think it's adding more to it would be better.
Thank you, Michelle. Any other thoughts on this? I know it's getting late. Okay, well, perhaps Carly and I will put something together for next month, and we'll review it together and consider nominating our first person. May not happen next month. I think we should really take our time and do things right. And I know we talk about so many things every month, so I don't want to rush, and I don't want to not rush. So we'll move it forward as fast as it wants to move. And if anyone has any thoughts, please email me. I'm slower than normal, but I would love all of your input on this, and I will keep it on old business from now on as we move forward. So, all right. Is there any other new business or old business? Sorry, I didn't ask. Connie?
I had a thought while you were all talking. Parks has selected 2 parks playgrounds in East Harlem for the Community Parks Initiative with the next round of funding. that may be our opportunity, instead of sitting back and waiting for them to come to us with the design and ask for a letter of support. Perhaps we could do some community outreach and get feedback as to what the community wants to see before the Parks Department does a design. And whether it's a survey, whether it's doing, I think we should actually do it in person and speak to people that use these spaces. It may be more hours than we really have or want to put in, but I think if we gather that information before they start the design process, and give it to them when they do come to us for a letter of support, if they have not addressed the issues that the community put forth ahead of time, that would be our response. You know, the community spoke to you and you didn't listen. Put the onus on us to gather that information instead of allowing Parks Department to do it their way.
Yep. I think that's a great suggestion, and I think that's emblematic of how Detective Omar Park was suggested as a parks improvement budget request for our committee that Parks handed to us, and there's no discussion as to why or what they intend to do, or if they've heard from the community that that's what needs to be done. I feel like they're making decisions in a void, and we should be involved. And I think that you're absolutely right, Connie. So I think we should reach out to Parks about the parks that are coming up for the Community Parks Initiative, and we can start mobilizing, I guess, to see what their thinking was behind that. And as soon as we get that information, I can share that with the committee, and we can discuss what we want to do in response, if that sounds good. David?
I just want to reiterate, I think, what Connie said, and I'll use the example. Last year, I live up in the Bronx now, and last year, a park across the street from us went through a whole process to redesign the park. They identified these wonderful things, asked for input from the community, and now they started the project. And now the project is only redoing the sprinklers. And what's really more appalling is that they're showing the rendering of what it would look like, and in the background of the equipment that's left, you know how some of those monkey bar things have like little house tops on it, or a little roof? Well, they showed the rendering with the roofs, but they removed the roofs a year and a half ago. So they're showing probably a rendering from 20, 30 years ago when they redid this and then didn't do the water part of the park. So I think, Connie, you're so right. We should identify this park, this is what we feel needs to be here, and make it happen in that way, or advocate in that way, than waiting for them to come with a final design that may not be the final design from current day, but maybe one from an old day. Because, they couldn't have done that rendering with the roofs on, because the roofs are not there anymore. And I think that's how little sometimes they think they could just push things through and we don't notice. So Connie, you're right. We should say these parks, this is what we would like to see in them. Maybe we do another canvas. When we went out before, Jessica, we went to look, right, and observe. Maybe now we go with a different eye in this park of what we would like to see as the design or best for kids in that area. So thank you, Connie.
Thank you, David. And first of all, why was this park selected over any other park? I think that's important to ask too. So Carly and I will reach out to Steve Simon and the rest of the parks groups to understand a little bit more. And it looks like we're gonna have a long list of old business next month. So thank you all for your passion and all your input on all of these topics. I really appreciate it. Is there anything else, Carly?
Just a roll call.
Okay, I never did the script this time, so I apologize for I've been a little bit unprepared today, and it's been a crazy week for me. So thank you for bearing with me. We can just go ahead and do the roll call, and I'll adjourn.
Sure. Collier, Elliott,
present.
Giordano,
Present.
Yoon, Ivy, Johnson, Lee,
Present.
McCullough,
Present.
Pena, Quinones, Rodriguez,
Present.
Bueller,
Present.
Wiltshire Clement,
Present.
Right. Okay, that's all.
All right, thank you, everyone. This meeting is adjourned if there are no objections at 8:47 p.m. Have a great night, everyone.
Good night.